President Trump has some tough decisions ahead of him, according to former U.S. Congressman Dave Bratt. He's now the dean of Liberty University School of Business and says he's concerned about the long-term damage from the pandemic on the economy, jobs, and the livelihood of Americans. He joins us now. Sir, good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. You say the president has tough choices in front of him. What are they?
Straight up through the roof. And the other is less well documented. That's the economic damage is also growing exponentially, straight up off the graph. The unemployment claims used to be 250,000, then 3 million, then 10 million, now 20 million, and 35 million Americans are in at-risk sectors, economic sectors related to the virus. And so the press, the mainstream press, just talks about the virus all day, but abstracts away from the economic damage and makes it sound like there's a simple choice. You can just shut down forever. And of course you can't. And so the mainstream press first went from the hospital bed story, and then that kind of went away. There's capacity. And then they went to the ventilators and, the White House is to blame for this. They've also abstracted on the blame game from China. They're not covering the CCP, the communist regime, that lied about the virus in the first place and won't share data and bleach scrubbed the labs and the fish markets and sent 400,000 Chinese here to the U.S. after they knew they had a pandemic in the early months, January, February, March. And so now finally at the end, the mainstream press just says testing. And as Dr. Fauci said, testing is part of the health regimen we need. You got to have that to better aim your resources at where hotspots might be. But folks are acting like that's going to get rid of the red dots. The mainstream press is that, hey, Trump's been bad on testing, and if you had the testing, we'd be all fine. Absolutely not true.
Yeah,
the red dots are there and the economy's in free fall, and the press doesn't offer any solutions. They just critique.
Mr. Bratt,
and so that's roughly where we stand right now.
Mr. Bratt, you have compared it to all 50 states being hit by a natural disaster at once. Describe that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you just look at the dollar amounts being allocated, right, the $2.3 trillion. This is like every single 50 states declaring a natural disaster and needing that level of resources to get through it, right? And I mean, you can see it most easily. The federal government all the health experts called for a total lockdown for at least a month. And so we voluntarily shut down the economy in total. And no natural disaster has ever done that, for just shut down an entire state, much less the country, in its entirety. And so that's the damage we're coming. And if you're a small business person, they're all communicating very clearly. If they lose sales and revenues, you can't just flick a switch on and get that, turned on the next day. Some of your workers may leave for other opportunities. Some may just go on unemployment insurance and give up. And then we have all the collateral damage. The sociological evidence shows 20 years from now, if you're displaced, you'll have 20% lower wages 20 years from now. So just massive damage coming at us.
Yeah, that sure is. Mr. Bratt, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. I appreciate it. Former U.S. Congressman from Virginia and Dean of the Liberty School of Business. Thanks again for your insights.